I'm going to double
numbers.
Jim's Mowing in 10 years.
Yeah. So welcome to the Jim's Mowing and Jim's Group podcast. We've got a really special guest today. And it's another one of our Divisional Franchiseor series. And we've got Dan Cahill, who's just taken over the Jim's Mowing division. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
Now, people will recognise Dan. So if you're watching our content, they would have seen you from, I think when I met you was Ask Jim and a few videos with Jeff Clayton back towards now. And that's probably been, what, 7-year journey?
But yeah, nearly 8 years since... actually, you might have met me after my first year or so in. So yeah 7 years ago or so, you and me would have first met.
Cool. So from those who don't know you, where did you start before Jim's Mowing?
McDonald's.
McDonald's, yep.
Yeah, so I started as a crew person at McDonald's and went through the ranks of crew trainer, shift supervisor, assistant manager. I got to look after one of the restaurants as well as a step-in store manager for a food court. And then, worked at the head office McDonald's in Collingwood as an assistant manager there. And yeah, it was a good journey. I learnt a lot about management from that.
Yeah, so you're at Macca's, all right? And then, but I know your story, but for people who don't know, so you're at Macca's, you're doing okay. So what was going on then, which prompted you to do Jim's Mowing?
They asked me if I could move to a store in Croydon. Croydon at the time was one of the worst performing stores in McDonald's in Australia. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to move over there and fix it up. And sure enough, we did, and we had it pumping. It was going really, really well. We had really good results. We were hitting our KPIs. And then we had the reason they wanted us to fix it up, I think, is because it was getting sold to a franchise owner.
Right.
So anyway,
so it was a company-owned store and they wanted to get it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So we fixed it up, and then there was just a few things that I didn't quite agree with the way it was being ran, and I just went, well, what am I doing? Doing all this extra work and extra hours to make someone else rich. I could be doing this for myself if I were to run my own business. And that's really where the thought came from. And then that's just sort of expanded. And Jim's Mowing popped up on a Facebook ad, and it just seemed it's like it was a light bulb moment. Like it just clicked. It was like this is meant to be.
So so you had the frustration that you're doing all this extra work and all this initiative for this business, and you got nothing out of it really. You just get your salary and that's it.
Yeah, I'd get my 40-hour week salary. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had the idea. So were you searching for Jim's Mowing, or just found you? Or?
Because of the lack of appreciation, I think it was what made me to then go, well, maybe I should go do something for myself. Why am I going to work so hard? Because I am very passionate about usually whatever it is that I go into. I just said, well, if I'm gonna have all this passion about what I'm doing, why don't I just do it for myself and do it for my family?
Right.
And when that Jim's Mowing ad popped up, and when I spoke to the franchisor, it felt so right, because all of a sudden this thought of like, if you mow a lot of lawns, Dan, you're going to make a lot of money, and there's nothing that's going to stop you because it's Jim's Mowing. They'll have plenty of work. Like, it just seemed like common sense. It's like, I don't need to go look for work. They're going to find me the work. They have people that are going to coach me and teach me how to run this business. I've just got to get out there and just do the jobs.
So it was only Jim's Mowing for you. That was it.
It was done deal. It was 100%. I didn't have the money for it, so I did have to borrow the money from my mother-in-law.
Wow.
I didn't have the guts to ask her, so I bought my wife chocolates and roses, and she went and asked her instead. But yeah, no, that was it. I was so sold on the idea because I knew that I was capable of it. I knew that I would not stop mowing. I would do it non-stop, and I did. I did 7 days a week, which highly do not recommend.
Yeah, but you had a reason for it. So you had a mortgage, I think, at the time, and you had. I was
in some debt from credit cards and the mortgage, and I had my little daughter Isla, who was one and a half at the time, and I had another daughter Annie that was on the way, and I was just like, all this all these loans and finance on cars and everything, it's getting to the point where we can't, the mortgage was $1,000 a week, which, back then was
a lot of money.
Even still to this day is probably a lot of money.
It is.
For a mortgage. So I was just like, no, I've got to provide for my family, and I've got to give my kids the best chance at life. I want to give them a fantastic childhood and just provide them with as much as I possibly can, because I didn't have that type of childhood. So I really wanted to just provide for them, and I knew that if I got in front of a lawnmower, I would not stop.
Well, the reason why I asked you that is just because people can relate to that, right? Financial stress. When we grow up, we have different financial habits as well. So, you've got credit cards and obviously a lot more financially astute now. But yeah, we have all these this debt loaded up to you and you're working this job, which is always going to be capped, plus you're using initiative, which doesn't get rewarded. So then you go, stuff this, well, I need to do something. And then obviously the Jim's Mowing vehicle you've come into and it's gone berserk, like with what you've been doing. So let's take you back though. You've gone to do Jim's Mowing, you've gone and borrowed money from your mother-in-law, plus you've got all this financial pressure that you obviously have to make it work. So then you come to training. So you're at training. Tell us about the training experience back then.
I was probably the most annoying person you'd ever meet at training. I just kept on asking questions non-stop. I'm sitting there with me pen and paper and I'm just sitting there writing it because whenever I write stuff down, it sticks better in my mind. Or if I don't write it down, I forget it as soon as I walk out of the room. And so I'm sitting there asking them every little question, anything that I wasn't sure of. And the reason is because while they're talking, I'm just thinking, you mow a lot of lawns, you make a lot of money. I hadn't even had the thought yet of potentially bringing on employees one day.
Yeah.
That wasn't even it wasn't a consideration. And I was just sitting there and I was like, what time can I start working? You know, am I allowed to work weekends? what mower should I get? You know, like I wanted to know, you know, what's going to stop me? You know, what's going to stop me from mowing lawns?
So you've done the training. What during back in the training experience stuck in your mind when you were listening to the guys?
What stuck with me? I think the thing that really resonated with me was actually Jim, which I know it's not a very original answer, but it was just the way that his passion came across. I seen how passionate and how much he cared about it, and you know when he talks, like anyone knows how Jim talks. It's from Jim's. He's just you can see the excitement. It's like while he's talking, it's like he's living in that moment at that time.
Yeah.
That's the way he speaks. And so while I was watching him speak, I was just like, it's like he's not even in the room with us. It's like he's sitting there in someone's property mowing their lawn. That's the way he would present that story in that picture. And I was just like, that for me, seeing someone that is that passionate, you know, whether he's the owner of the company or a CEO, whatever, you know, but just meeting someone that had that sort of drive was just like, wow, like this person is just really, really like inspiring. And so that was something where I was like, I really want to do this. Like if Jim could start, because he told us the story about how he started, you know, by himself and he had $24 to start the business. And I was just like, if he can do it, why can't I? Like, why can't I go as hard as that?
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping me.
And that's great to hear that because that's what Jim always says. You know, he always openly states his flaws in the hope that people realise you can do it as well, right? So that's that right message to take away. So you've done the training. Now you're in your first week. So talk about your first day because there was a bit of if you had an interesting first week. So we're going to talk about that.
First week in, so I got up every morning 6 a.m. and got to the first job at 6:55. I made sure that my vehicle was completely ready. I had plenty of brush cutter line ready to go, cut up into the perfect sizes, 2-stroke oil mixed with the petrol. Everything was ready. And I'd start the jobs, I'd get there at 6:55 a.m. and I'd start the brush cutter at 7 a.m. and I'm ready to do the nature strip. And I'm just so like, let's get these jobs done. And I've worked all day and I would finish the job as quickly as I can, make sure it was nice and neat, blow it off, make sure I was happy. Back then I'm terrible with computers, so every single quote that I would do an invoice was actually on a pen and paper. It was a pad with a pink slip on the back. And so I'd write the invoice out to the customer and give it to them. If they weren't home, I'd put it in their letterbox.
Yep.
But these were jobs that I'd already previously purchased. Now, I didn't realise that this business I purchased was the jobs were undervalued. They were getting done for much less than what they were actually supposed to be, which is probably why the guy ended up leaving the business. You know, and I'm just pumping out these jobs every day, and I'm just like, right, how can I save any seconds possible? How can I save any time? Get in the car, find the most, you know, go to the next job, just try and find any way to save as much time. And then I get to the point where it's like, I've finished the jobs for the day that we put on the schedule. And then I was like, right, there's jobs that can still be done that are from tomorrow. Let's get them. So I added them to the schedule. And I was like, cool, let's bring them forward. So I kept on working throughout the day. And then I smashed those jobs out. And before I knew it, because I'm so excited about this, I can't see the grass because it's black. It's dinner time for everyone. It's nighttime.
Yeah.
So I can't actually, and I was like, well, I suppose I've got to stop because I wasn't sitting there focusing on what time it is. I didn't care what time it was. I was just going to keep mowing while I could. So I stopped mowing. I went back home after that job. And the next day, I was like, all right, I'm going to pull jobs from Wednesday and Thursday and just do it all again. I did 2 weeks worth of work in that first week. And And so I just wanted to make as much as I possibly could, and it was like, Dan, you need to prove that you can provide for your family. Like, you know, this idea of like, you need to do this for your kids. You need to do this for your wife. You know, what sort of man are you? Like, are you gonna really provide for them? And that was like this idea in my head of like, let's just keep pushing. Let's just see how far I can take myself. And I did. So first week in, I made $3,600, which, you know, not a lot of people in lawn mowing would think that's a lot now, but to me, that was huge. That was the most I'd ever been paid. And in that moment, I was just like, what? Yeah. This is insane. I can now, like, I'm providing. I'm feeling so good. Like, I was so used to getting a, you know, pretty minimal paycheck from my last job, to then going into this and going, wow, I did this and I earned this. And then the second week in, I was like, let's do it again. And, you know, I think everyone could see how energetic I was about it. And I said to my franchisor, I said, I need more work. I've done all my work already in that first week. And he goes, well, that was supposed to last you 2 weeks. And I go, I know, but I want more work. And he goes, well, if you want more work, he goes, you're going to have to turn yourself on for all areas.
Yep.
Open up your all areas. Don't just do, you know, 15 kilometres or 20 kilometres. Go do 30 kilometres. I was all right, I'll do 30 kilometres as well. So I was travelling to go do work. I went through all the unserviced leads. I clicked on them. I was just like, you know what? I'll pay for all these unserviced leads. It doesn't bother me, because they were the same price as a normal lead fee. And I took on them, and then I went out to the real estate agents. And Jenny from eView in Chelsea, I went and spoke with her, told her a story about how, you know, basically I bought this business, you know, really couldn't afford it, had to borrow the money from my mother-in-law. My wife's going through all this stress, she's pregnant. Jenny felt terrible for my wife. I don't know what she thought of me, but she definitely felt bad for my wife.
Right.
So, so passed me work, and then I got flyers with business cards and put them in people's letterboxes. I eventually started doing magnets after a little while.
Yep.
And did that all week with prams, just pushing the prams in and putting them in everyone's letterboxes. And second week in, just worked 7 days, just kept on going, and $3,650. So $50 more than my first week. And it was the most amazing feeling. I don't know if I'll ever relive it, but it was just like, wow, this is something huge. Like, I'm going to be able to provide for my kids.
How much more was it than what you were getting at Macca's? So what was how was it comparing? I was like triple the.
Well, I was on $52,000 per year before tax.
Yeah.
So
that's obviously a big difference.
Yeah, it was a big difference. Yeah, it would have been maybe like 750, 800 that I was getting per week after tax.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast, and sorry for the interruption. This is the host, Joel Kleber. I've got a real quick favour to ask you. We've had more than 50,000 downloads across our podcast over the years, but not many reviews. So we just need people to take the time to do us a favour. And if you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Really helps the show. Now back to the podcast. So then how have you then scaled this thing? So you've second week in, you've got you're getting reward for your effort, which is obviously a massive motivator. And then from there, you've started building. So tell us a bit more about the journey from where you go from your second week.
Well, that's where I went, hey, I'm onto something here. I'm going to keep doing this. And I had a little bit of money as well. So I was like, all right, now I'm feeling pretty comfortable. I've just gone and made, $7,000 in 2 weeks. I want to see how else I can get more work coming through. So I kept my leads on. I went and started, speaking with all the other franchisees in the area, asking them for work. And then I started doing the magnets instead with the letterbox shops, kept doing them non-stop. I wouldn't stop. And once I finished my area, I asked my franchisor if I could go do any vacant areas. So I would do letterbox shops for vacant areas as well. And then I went and signed up with a whole bunch of different home care agencies. So I signed up as a registered provider with them as well, which worked out well. I started doing before and after photos and asking customers to share them for me online.
Yep.
I went through all the different community page forums to look for anyone that needed a service done.
Yep.
I ended up creating a list. I think there's actually a video of me talking about this list I created of all these different marketing strategies I was going to use to be able to get extra work. I would take photos, like I would go to a customer's property, a regular customer. I'd climb up on my ladder. They wouldn't, while I'm doing their lawn mowing, after I finish, I'd climb up their ladder, take a photo of their gutters inside of it, jump back down, send them through a quote, let them know how much the quote is. Just send them through. They wouldn't even ask for it. Email it. Let them know I've sent them through the quote and let them know it needed to be done. And the proof was there because it was a photo.
Yeah.
Or if it wasn't the gutters that needed to be done, maybe it was a hedge. Maybe it was weeding. It didn't matter to me. It was something that was going to continue to keep me busy and keep money coming in.
But
And
you've done all this local area marketing and trying to generate all this work for yourself. Then how did you keep up? Because I'm sure the work started flowing in. So then how did you manage to keep up with it? Because you're doing all this different marketing stuff. So how did you fit it all in?
Well, I didn't have to do as many letterbox drops as in the following weeks,
Right.
which was good because that gave me extra time to be able to mow more lawns.
Yeah.
And then my wife ended up coming on board as well, and she started, instead of me having to write the paper invoices and paper quotes, she started doing it all on the computer, the invoices and that, on the Jimbo software. And so that gave me extra time as well. But yeah, it didn't matter. I was finding a way to, no matter what, I was just going to fit it in. Mm-hmm. And then I got, 4 months in, I was making like $5,000 a week, and I was like, this is fantastic.
We were at a pretty big regular base by then. So how big was your regs at that stage?
Would have been at 4 months in, maybe about 80, 90 maybe be like 80, 90 regulars. But I had to, around that time, 4 months in, I had to give my customers a price rise because the customers I bought in the business originally didn't have a price rise yet. So I had to do one for one. So I'd give a customer a price rise, and if they said yes to it, awesome, I'd continue to service their property. But if they said no to it, then I would let them know that I can't service their property anymore. I'd pass them on to another contractor to give them a quote, and then I would bring on a new regular client. So I would do all that marketing, leads, everything else, and bring on a new regular client. And then once that was done, I'd go, right, I've got my numbers back. Now I'm going to go give the next customer a price rise. Right. So I had all my customer price rises done before 6 months in.
Yeah.
And 6 months in, I think I had over 100 regular clients at that point.
Yeah, so you've been pretty busy. So you've got Mel, who's your wife in your business, helping you out, which is with the admin and stuff. Then you're just out there pumping and going flat out all day.
Yep.
So then what was the next step from there? Because when did you feel the need for an employee?
It was pretty close after my 6 months in was when I realised, because I was already asking my brother to help me out with some jobs here and there as well after he's finished his Macca's shift. And so he wasn't all that happy about it, but he's my younger brother. So.
Right, made him do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Made him do it.
And so I realised that if I want to grow this, like I don't have any more time left in the day. Like I've got all this work coming through. How do I keep up with it? I said to Alex, I said, you're not working at Macca's anymore, mate. You're going to come and work with me. Mm. He didn't seem to mind all that much. So, he started working with me. And, it was just me and him working in the car every day. That went all right because I taught him how to mow lawns. I taught him how to, do all the edging and everything. And he had terrible taste in music in the car. And, there's only so many times you can listen to Evanescence on repeat.
Well, you're the older brother, mate. You pull
anyways. Yeah. And so I got sick of him. I got really sick of him. And I said, no, I'm not working with you anymore. You're doing my head in. Because he lived with me at the same time as well. So there was no escaping him.
Yep.
Very annoying person. And so I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up with your own mowing round. So you're going to go do these regular clients. Now, I also had ride-on mowing jobs that I was doing. I didn't trust him with the ride-on mower because he didn't know how to reverse a trailer.
Right, yeah.
And I wasn't going to let him practice with my trailer because he'd go destroy people's properties. So I said, all right, you're going to you've got the ute here. You're going to put push mower, brush cutter, blower, all your stuff that you need for the day. And we put stickers on the ute as well, so it all looked nice and neat, Jim's Mowing stickers. And he would go out, and I gave him enough customers to make me $3,500 a week.
Right.
So $700 per day is what he would do me in an 8-hour day. And he got to know those customers really well. He actually knew them better than I did. Mm. And so because that worked out so well, I was just like, well, I'll keep doing this. I'm just going to keep working. So I would because a good chunk of my customer base was gone then, and I had spare time, I just went, right, I'm going to fill up my work with yard cleanups again and once-off jobs.
Yeah. And
that's all I'm going to focus on. I'm just going to keep on doing them. And every customer I take on, every once-off job, it doesn't matter, everyone's going to get a quote for a regular mowing. So I'd give everyone a quote for regular mowing. They didn't even need to ask for it. I'd just give them a quote. And then I'd slowly build up my next mowing round. Mm-hmm. And
so through your brother annoying you that you sort of had this idea, well, I can do this rounds thing and keep doing it and replicating it.
Yeah. It was.
Well done, Alex. So you can give Alex a bit of nice bonus. You have to get him copping a serve. Yeah. So you from that sort of one event from your brother and you're realising, he's going to make me this, then you've gone, I can do this with more people, right? So from there, were you doing splits or were you doing...
No, I wasn't doing splits. So I could have done splits because for solo operators, if they want to build up their business and they get to a certain point where they've got a full mowing round and they only want to work 40 hours a week or how many hours a week they want to do. Once they're at that point, they can then bring on an employee or sell a split off. So I knew that I could sell off a split if I wanted and make a good cash injection into my business from doing it, and then just take on more once-off work and still have the same amount of work every week anyways. But no, I didn't do that. And the reason is because when you're selling a split, you're selling it for whatever the cut value is. So, a lot of my jobs were worth, let's say, $80 per mow. And so I would go, well, if I'm going to sell that for a certain cut value, let's say I sold it for 5 times the cut value. So that customer would be worth $400 to go sell. I went, well, I could go sell that client for that amount, or I could keep this client on, go mow them 5 times, plus get all these add-on sales from this client as well, and make even more.
Right.
So I was like, why would I sell that off? I'd rather bring on an employee.
Yeah.
So, but not a lot of people want to bring on employees, but that was how I did it. And so I was just, I became almost like obsessed with finding new local area marketing strategies to be able to continue to bring work in for the business, to be able to build up more and more regular clients.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good point. So people should know if they're watching this, you can do a split where you sell your customers if you don't want the hassle of employees, or you can put an employee and keep scaling up as well. And you went for the employee route.
Yes.
So then how long did it take you to build up to your peak with your team? Because you got it to a pretty big size eventually. So how?
My peak would have been within 3 years to 3.5 years, somewhere between there.
Yep.
That's where I had 6 full-time employees on. And they were, each making me, $3,500 a week. Obviously, you have issues week by week where someone calls in sick and I've got to jump in and fill their spots, and I can't quote as many jobs because of that, or equipment breaks down and they've got to come back to the yard, or they do a job wrong and I've got to go fix it up. Those sorts of things. So you've always got those issues. It was very difficult finding good employees. Not many people realise. Like I say, I had 6 employees, but I had to go through 27 different people to find those 6.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of people coming in and out. You'd give them a shot and you could just see it wasn't working for them. So you've got to make sure you've got your employment agreement in place for that as well.
Yep. And then how did you maintain the customer service? I remember we come out and did a video for 500 5-star surveys. So then how did you maintain that quality control amongst all these jobs? Because these guys were doing lots of jobs.
So we had really good culture with the employees. So I had different ideas that I had on retention. So I'd take them out for crew outings very regularly. And we were all friends because I'd hired friends and family in my business. The only one that I was different was the guy that I hired from Hungry Jack's because he gave me free bacon on my Ultimate Double Whopper.
Right, and you gave him a job.
Gave him a job for him. He just kept on, like for months in months, he just kept on giving me extra bacon free of charge, and he'd just like give me a nod like, there you go, mate. And I was like, geez, I love this guy. So I hired him, and he was a brilliant hire. He used to run with the mower.
Yeah.
We had this culture which was like everyone knew that they wanted to build this business, and it was because everyone was like, we want to be the best Jim's mowing business around. And this was the idea. And I'd kept on continuing to say it to them as well. And so we had... all of our guys were all friends, so we would all hang out with each other after work every night, sit down, have a few drinks, have the fire going. They wouldn't leave my house. Just sit there talking to them. I'd be fixing the equipment. They'd come in early the next morning, and I'd say, guys, we're now at 305 5-star reviews or whatever it was. And then, every week I'd go, I'd pull the report and I'd go, guys, we've got another 25-star reviews. Fantastic work, awesome. And so I had like little incentives. So if we got to a certain amount, which is probably why we had so many of the crew meetings, was I would take them to paintball. I'd take them to go-karting. I'd take them out. One time I hired, a top floor apartment of a skyscraper in Melbourne. I leased out the room, and those guys went crazy that weekend. So they loved that. But it was just this idea of let's build this together, guys. Like this is something that we're doing as a team. Yeah. And they were really passionate about it, which is why when I ended up finishing up with my first Jim's mowing business, I sold it to them for a very, very reasonable price. They got an absolute steal out of it. And they did well for themselves out of it. So
the way to make them care about their jobs was obviously you paid them well and you supported them and you were there. And you build a culture of mateship, so they really cared about looking after your business.
They cared about looking after the business, but also looking after each other. They didn't want to let each other down. Because if you grab a whole bunch of positive people, they all want to go towards a common goal. If you bring someone in negative, it just spreads like an infection. And so there was no one negative. All of us were all really, really motivated to just see what we could do. And we were all very excited because it was like, we didn't know anyone that was doing this.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't know anyone that was building mowing rounds. We didn't know anyone that was caring about the 5-star surveys. We didn't know anyone that was working anywhere near as hard as what we were either, or that had the group of 6 guys that were just, or 7 guys because of me as well, that would just every night chill at our place, have a fire going, have drinks going. Like, you know, it was our thing, and it was something that we were proud of. And like, you know, we're from Jim's Mowing. You know, we were like representing it. Like every Jim's Mowing franchisee around the whole area all knew about our business, all knew about our employees and all the jobs and everything.
Yeah.
Like we were very, very proud of it.
And how's the support as a franchisee level? Did you have meetings, or how did that work?
As a franchisor?
No, as you as a franchisee, what support did you get? How did you go with the support?
With my employees?
No, with your franchisor. Like, because you would have been a franchisee, you would have had support.
What was my franchisor like?
Yeah, like, what was the support
fantastic.
system?
My first franchisor was Jeff Clayton, and he was fantastic.
I remember Jeff, he was a gun, yeah.
I cannot speak more highly of him.
Yeah.
Like, he did videos of me, and like, there's a whole bunch of videos that he's done on his own channel.
We're going to show one, so we're going to clip it, that one I sent to you, which is the one where you first did the video of Jeff, which I think still gets used today, where you're standing in front of the camera. I think it was like 6 minutes, and you just started, and you're saying how much you're doing and how it's changed your life.
But he would drive you. He would drive you to succeed. That was his thing. That was his magic.
So you've learned that from him, though, haven't you, now with your
100%. 100%.
So what did he teach you?
So he would come out and he would do spot checks, and he would be like, Dan, why have you got a stain on your Jim's Mowing shirt?
Right.
Are you quoting in that shirt today? Have you got a spare shirt in the back that you can use to be able to do quotes? Dan, why aren't your traffic cones out on this job? You know, he would just have like little things, and he would just always be at you, and you'd just be like, geez, I need that. Like,
drive some standards, yeah.
Just constantly contacting you. Where are you at? How many regular clients have you got? What price per minute are you at, Dan? Like, and then you know, when he would speak to Mel, because he'd speak to Mel as well, he'd go, how are you, Mel? Are you happy? Oh yeah, no worries. But then when he was on the phone to me, Dan, what are you doing? And I was just like, Jesus. Like, he just pushed you so hard, but it was brilliant. Like, you needed that.
Yeah.
And then my next franchisor after Jeff was Stuart Rainbow, and Stuart was a bit more relaxed, but he was a really, really nice sort of fella that just got along with you. And he would just say, Dan, how can I help you out? What do you need? Because at this point, I'd already had a pretty big business. I think I had like maybe 3 employees on by the time that Stuart came on.
Yeah.
And I'd say, look, Stuart, I don't really need too much from you. I'm quite happy at the moment. And then he goes, well, Dan, I want to help you out. I want to know what I can do to help you out. And I go, well, Jeff used to do these videos for me. Would you be interested in doing these videos? He goes, absolutely. He goes, tell me, let's organise videos for you. And so he introduced me to you. And so you came out and you started doing videos for when we hit 300 5-star reviews. And
well, I think you came on Ask Jim first, I think, before that. I think you came on that.
Yeah, I did come. I did go on Ask Jim.
When we did it, when we did it back in the day. So people can see that up. I think it was pretty early on.
Yeah, I think I had like the hoodie jumper, the cool looking hat.
Yeah, you had the hoodie jumper, yeah. I remember that. And look where you've come to now.
And I had this great big beard.
You did have
as
a big
well.
beard. You had a big one. I remember that.
And
But you've had great support from the franchisors is the point I'm trying to make. So that's good because that's where you've sort of got your, I guess, some of your support beliefs from as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The support, it's not just from the franchisors, it was from the franchisees. Like, I used to have like Eddie and Glenn and, Darren just contact me and go, Dan, you're absolutely killing it, well done. Or like, you'd go to the meetings and, they'd go, good on you, Dan, I see how well you're doing, like, keep building those rounds, mate. And then like, I'd send them once-off jobs because after a while I got sick of doing once-off jobs, and I'd send them once-off jobs and they'd send me more regulars through.
Now I want to stop on this because I think this is really important with Jim's Mowing to point out about that. I don't think that's a culture in the independent industry or outside of gyms that I hear in general, how people are so supportive going back and forth like that, or is that not the case?
I don't know. I haven't really heard of...
Because I think when people think of Jim's Mowing, there's so many franchisees, they think everyone's competing with each other.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's a bit difficult to do that as an independent because you don't really... Like, everyone runs their own independent business.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally in the words. It's an independent business. But in Jim's Mowing, because you've all got like that sort of that common franchisor that helps you out, or the Divisional that, looks after them as well, and you're all getting coached and helped out, like... Prices are pretty similar to each other.
Yeah.
The support that we give to customers is pretty similar because we're all constantly getting communication and feedback on how to improve.
Yes.
So because of that, we can go, well, I've got a job over that's, too far away from me. You've got a job near me. How about we swap jobs? So we can do that, or I can go, here you go, mate. I can give you all these once-off jobs. I know you like doing this sort of work. And then he would send me regulars every now and then. Like, I had so many people doing that. So it was easy to build my business that way as well.
Yeah. No, I just want to point that out because I think the support thing, we undersell it sometimes and people don't know what it means, but it's worth its weight in gold by having access to everyone in your division.
One of the biggest driving factors is definitely the franchisees supporting the franchisees.
Yes.
But I think that comes down to the actual franchisor, because it's their job to protect the brand and make sure that they're bringing on the right type of franchisee, recruiting the right type of franchisee. If they bring the wrong type of franchisee, every other franchisee knows about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long for word to spread. So, you know, and they'll get a hard time from her as well, because if they bring on someone negative or that's damaging the brand, you know, we know.
We have to be so strict because if a gym's person from any division does the wrong thing, that person's not going to most likely use this again, right?
We're all very proud of the brand.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a lot of power to it. So because of that, you know, we all want to look after it, and we all look after each other as well. So if one of us is having a bit of a lull, you know, we'll pick each other up. Here you go, mate. Here, take this work on. If one of us has a mower that breaks down, here you go, mate. Here's a spare mower.
Yep.
Like that's the idea behind it, is that we're all here to help each other out. And, you know, a lot of us we've all had jobs before. We've all been part of different teams, and we've come into this and we go, right, we're going to use what we've learnt from this and we're going to really create a team here. So a lot of the guys talk to each other regularly on WhatsApp, or they go around to each other's places for barbecues or meet up at the pub. Like, it's kind of nice because you're like, well, this is my social setting now. You know, it doesn't feel like work. It's like, these are my mates.
No, that's great to hear.
Especially at the tip. Like the conversations you have at the tip.
Yeah.
You know, there's some real deep D&Ms that go on there.
Really?
Yeah.
We take the grass waste away. There we go. I was going to say as well, so you've done franchisee for a while, you got a pretty big team, and you hit a point, and then next thing you know, you're starting to do regions. How did you get involved as a regional franchisor?
So this is where I had, like, you know, the 6 employees working for me. I just kept on building round after round. It was such a simple system. I was just like, I can just keep doing this. And then Jim spoke to me and said, this is when because I was doing training. I was doing training at Jim's Mowing at this point at the national office. And Jim seen me one time and he just said, Dan, have you considered about being a franchisor? And I thought about it. I was like, oh, well, I probably could do that. I mean, you know, and so I spoke to him a bit more, and because I'd see him every 3 weeks, he said to me, he goes, take a look at Brisbane, Dan, because he knew I was looking for a few regions, because it's not often the region comes up, and he goes, take a look at Brisbane. I go, well, Jim, I live in Melbourne. He goes, yeah, but take a look at it. He goes, you know, you could move there if you needed to. So I called up the franchisor for Brisbane, a lovely couple, Ron and Alana Sadowski, really nice
one of the first people,
Yeah, and they invited me into their house. They were just really lovely people. And, they told me about their business, and it's like they created a family. It's like their franchisee team it was like a weird thing where, like, they were the mum and the dad.
Yep.
And like all the franchisees were part of their family, and that's how they all treated each other, and they'd come around for barbecues and everything. And I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, this is really cool. And like people from Queensland are just like really, really easy going.
They're very nice, yes.
Chill sort of people. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I could get used to this. And so I said to Mel, I said, I'm gonna do this Brisbane thing. This is my wife. I said, I want to take on Brisbane. Now, what they were asking for was quite expensive. So I actually ended up, I remember how nervous I was. I called Jim up and I said, because they were asking for like nearly $1 million.
Yeah, it's a big region, yep.
And I called Jim up and I said, Jim, would you mind, you know, giving me a loan for, you know, nearly $500,000? Because I had the other amount, the other 50%. And he said, no, Dan, I won't do that for you. And I said, all right. And he goes, but if you're interested, I'll be your business partner in it. And I was like, what? And he goes, yep, we'll do 50-50 and we'll split the profits. And I was like, wow, this is Jim. You know, Jim's saying this to me. And I said, all right, well, sounds good. If we can do that, absolutely. And he goes, yep, you just tell me how everything's going. You keep in contact with me.
Yep.
And he goes, I'll keep on giving you guidance and you know, help you out with running it. And you know, anything that you need to ask, we're here. He goes, you can ask any of the national office team. You can ask me. He goes, we'll do it together. He goes, this will be a really good idea. Because it was the first time he's ever done that.
It was the first time, yeah.
And so I was like, all right. And so he was interested to see how this would work out. So Jim would keep on, you know, catching up with me when I'd come and do the training and everything. and be like, how's the region going down? And we'd sit down and we'd go through it all, and I'd tell him about the growth and the leads and, you know, how happy the franchisees were and where they were at. And he'd keep on giving me constant feedback, and he'd give me feedback about what advertising I could do and, you know, how I could speak to inquiries and all the rest of it. And I was like, isn't that insane having Jim sitting there like teaching you, you know, like that's crazy. And I was looking for a house to buy in Brisbane North, but by the time that I went up there looking for one in like Aspley and Chermside sort of area, and before I knew it, the region was doing really well. We had really good numbers coming in. Franchisees were really happy. And Jim said to me, hey, would you be interested in buying Brisbane North? Buying Queensland North, with me. And I was like, all right. And he goes, but it's got to be on the same deal. He goes, I've got to be 50% with you.
Yeah.
And I go, okay. And he goes, the deal that we've got is going really well for me. I was like, all right, well, let's do it. So we did it again. And we did that 6 times over. You know?
Well, how much? I'll just stop you there because people don't know this. How did you make it work interstate? Because that's always the hesitation. Franchisors generally are in the region they actually support, right? Whereas you've been one of the only few, from my memory, who's been able to do it from interstate. It normally never works, and we normally used to say, no, we're not going to do that. You have to be in the state, which is why Jim would have said, oh, yeah, you can just move up there. But it's very hard to do it interstate. So how have you been able to do it?
I had regional managers.
Right.
So I hired really, really experienced franchisees from the region to become managers for me.
Right. So you had let's say if you had that massive region, you had a couple of regional managers there that would support on the ground. And then you would do the sales from down here?
I would do sales, which was, you know, one aspect.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I would look after the franchisees and teach them how to build up their mowing grounds.
Right.
So I had the regional managers there, and they would be in constant communication with the franchisees, but I would also be in constant communication.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there teaching everyone how to build their mowing ground. So I would track how many regular clients they had on, how much they were making per week. So they'd tell me. Franchisees are very open with me, even though they don't have to be. And I'd sit there and I'd go, right, now you're at this point, this is what you need to do now. So this is where you should be focusing on. And so I'd be able to sit there and teach the franchisees how to charge. So they'd send me through jobs that they needed to quote. I'd tell them how much to quote for it. And so all these franchisees would be learning from me how to build their mowing grounds. Because that's all I knew was just building these mowing. Like, how am I going to support them? Well, I'll do what I know. And so because of that, it went really well because they had regional managers that were on the ground offering support. They could go out to jobs, whatever it was. And then they also had me there just giving them all this information of this is where you're at. Let's get to this point. This is your next target. This is your next goal. So that's how it worked. I had regional managers.
So then you've done that. And then now, as you said, you went 6 other regions with Jim, or you had 6 in total?
6 in total with Jim as 50-50. Yep.
And it's just been a matter of you just then replicating what you've done for Brisbane and Queensland just with those other ones, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I replicated the Brisbane area and the North Queensland, which was Mackay, Townsville, Cairns. And then I did that with, you know, from Rockhampton down through to Sunshine Coast South, all those areas in between. I did it with Northern Territory. I did it with Southern New South Wales, Central, West New South Wales, all these different areas. And I just replicated it. And I just went, all right, we're going to have a regional manager. And we're going to have mentors. I even brought in people that were like mentors, which were franchisees from each of these towns. And we're going to teach people how to build these businesses. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to sit here and we're going to show them exactly step by step how to do it.
Well, let's go through your formula then. So obviously when someone becomes a new franchisee with you, they're going to get this formula. But what is your belief around it? So first week, first 2 weeks, what should be the franchisees doing, or how do you help them in those first couple of weeks to really set them up?
So I usually set up their areas, all areas. We set up Facebook page, Google My Businesses, all that sort of stuff gets done by us. But I usually get them to start off by doing yard cleanups and once-off jobs. And the reason is because if they start off by just doing lawn mowing jobs, they'd have to go quote, 40 lawn mowing jobs to get 40 hours worth of work. So it's just unreasonable. So I would get them to do yard cleanups and once-off jobs. So whether it be hedge trimming or slash mowing or just long grass, whatever it was. And so, a yard cleanup will usually take you about 2 days to do one yard cleanup. So that's where you're going there and you're cutting the lawn down, you're getting all the edges back to where they need to be, you're removing all the weeds for them, you're removing all the leaves and, any stick litter or anything like that. You're doing pruning, you're doing hedge trimming, You might even clean gutters. You're taking away the waste. You're doing spraying. So you're doing
All these services, yeah.
all these services at one property. And so one of those jobs usually takes, on average, about 2 days. It depends on the size of the property and how bad it is. But you're doing all that and you're cleaning it up. And so from doing that, they only need to take on 3 or 4 customers from the call centre, and they've booked out their week.
Yep.
So once I see that they've got that work booked in, they're making really good money, then I'm like, all right, we've got this work booked in. We know that you've got good money coming in. You booked out. Let's now focus on building up your mowing round. And so I ask them, I say, do you want to build up a push mowing round or a ride-on mowing round? And so a lot of them will start off by doing a push mowing round. In fact, I would say 80% of them start off with a push mowing round, because that's what's part of the package deal that I have. And they'll start taking on these jobs and then giving these clients quotes for regular services and to continue to take on work from the call centre. We'll get them signed up with like different home care agencies, and we'll get them work coming through from there so they can build up this mowing round quickly.
Yeah.
Some franchisees do a mixture of both push mowing and ride-on mowing jobs, which is all good and well. And so once they've got that push mowing round built up, we go, all right, where do you want to take it from now? You know, do you want to turn this into a ride-on mowing round? And so if they do, then we go, all right, let's take on some bigger properties. Let's start getting you into acreage work, getting you into to take on commercial contracts and insurance contracts. Let's get you to take on body corporates and retirement villages, large residential blocks. So they start focusing now on shifting it and trying to take on these jobs. And then they swap jobs out with other franchisees, or just, move them along, reallocate them back through the call centre. And they slowly start bringing these bigger jobs in. They already have a few bigger jobs there that can get done with a ride-on, until they have that ride-on mowing round built up. Or if they don't want to, if they don't want to do that, they can stay doing a push mowing round. But usually once they have that round built up, they go, all right, let's bring on an employee and get them to look after it, or let's sell a split of it. There's always something that you can do.
Yep. And you're actively obviously in their ears if they, you can see them at a point where they need to grow. You're there, like Jeff was to you, and asking you, what are you doing? How can we get to the next level? And you're pushing them from your perspective. Absolutely,
yeah. So, I send them through like quoting formulas as well. I have the regional managers constantly contacting them. I actually had a lot of my franchisees that said that I would contact them too much.
So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
I had this thing where it was like me and the regional managers like contact every franchisee on a Monday. Let's get this done. And so they were all just like, please, like, give us a break. Like, it's every week. It's just constant.
Now, it's a good thing. Hope you're enjoying the podcast, and sorry for the interruption. This is the host, Joel Kleber. I've got a real quick favour to ask you. We've had more than 50,000 downloads across our podcast over the years, but not many reviews. So we just need people to take the time to do us a favour. And if you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Really helps the show. Now back to the podcast. But let's talk about earnings now, because obviously earnings, it's different compared to, for what everyone's different, right? But we obviously, me and you, we've done videos in the past about earnings and stuff. All the independents or people who just tall poppy just come on and just try and run it down. So I want to talk about the realities of the business and the earnings and things like that. So what's the typical sort of franchisee getting to after, let's say, 3 months? Let's say they've had 3 months to settle in, and they built it up. What are sort of generating?
Everyone's different, because it depends on what type of work they're doing. Because let's
go with the ride-on one. So I know it can depend on work, but let's just go for your typical ride-on guy. What sort of level are you getting to?
I'll talk about what I was doing.
Right.
I'll talk about what I was doing and what I expected from my employees. Yeah. So if I had an employee that was able to do a ride-on round for me, you can make more with a ride-on mower than you can a push mower. In fact, a ride-on is probably the best investment you can ever get, because you get to sit down for half of the job, which is brilliant. You get to it opens you up for more opportunities where you can now take on commercial contracts and acreage work as well, and you can do the jobs a lot faster,
quicker. Yeah.
So it's just a great idea.
Yeah.
But if they were doing a ride-on mowing round for me, I would expect them to earn me about $1,000 to $1,200 per day usually.
That's pretty good money.
It's not bad. It's not bad. But they're working for it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend
you got to work hard
it's easy work. Yeah.
So out of that, like, obviously the other question we get, well, you've got to give 30% to gym, you've got to pay GST, you've got to do tax, you've got to equipment. You're probably lucky to get, let's say $300 a day out of that amount. So what's the sort of cost centres, or what's the expenses with running a business?
Well, there's a few costs. So you've got your...
got your fees? Yep.
Yeah, you got your fees.
Yep.
So everyone's different, so I can't talk on behalf of everyone, but for the most part, franchise fees are somewhere around about $200 per week.
Yes.
So you've got that. You've got your petrol costs. So you might, depends on your area. If you're in a metro area, then you're not gonna spend as much on petrol. If you're in a more of a rural area, then you're gonna travel a bit further, obviously. But let's call it, I don't know, $40 per day on fuel. You've got your tip fees, how much you spend at the tip each week. Now, for the most part, most people are taking green waste away, which isn't all too expensive. It's not. There's so many different areas around Australia to say how much tip fees are worth.
Yeah.
But it's not a huge amount. And then you've got brush cutter line, you've got two-stroke oil, you've got new mower blades, you've got just general maintenance on the equipment, all that sort of stuff. So most franchisees with their fees included, you're probably looking at about somewhere around $500 per week for your expenses.
It's pretty good.
It's not expensive to run a mowing business.
No, and then you obviously, and then people go tax, but you can have different tax companies and things set up as well, and everything's a business expense too, or most things are.
Yep.
So you're doing all right.
Yeah. I like to think that after you pay your tax out and after you pay your expenses, so a lot of people use the idea of thirds. So if you've got an employee on, you go, all right, well, I'm going to spend this much on your tax, your expenses for your business, so a third of that to tax and expenses, and then you got your employee wage, which is roughly
Work
about a third.
and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. And then you've got your profit, which is the other third.
Yep.
Now, it's not an exact science, but it's not bad. So because of that, you go, all right, well, if you've got an employee on, it's somewhere around that sort of 30% mark or a third or whatever it is. But if you don't have an employee on and you're not paying those wages, then you go, well, if I'm doing it by myself, then you go, all right, well, now I've got 2/3.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think we've got to point out, because I think when we obviously quote things online, so this person's making this, and everyone's like, well, what's the net profit, right? They want to know the net profit. And obviously everyone's tax structure is different and stuff, but people can we don't actually ask franchisees directly. You might ask your franchisees directly, but we don't record that data anyway because we're a flat fee model, which I think is important to people to point out. But people can do the math and work out roughly. They're obviously not working for less than what they were doing before, so they're doing all right. Because you want to talk about that real quickly as well. You said your fee, so 200, it could be 200 to 250 depending on a couple of things, which is lead fees. So we'll just talk about lead fees real quickly for people who don't understand.
So essentially the work comes from our call centre. So our call centre staff, they send it through to the franchisee. When a customer calls a call centre, it will get allocated to a franchisee that's on for that type of work in that area. And if it's sent out to you, you get charged a lead fee. Now, lead fees are usually roughly $15 to $20 or so for a lead fee. So it depends on the area.
Yeah.
But it's only a one-time price. So you buy that client lead. Get that client. That's your client forever. And even if that customer says to you, "I want my lawns mowed every 2 weeks." That doesn't mean you pay $15 every 2 weeks to gyms. You pay that $15 once at the very start when you take them on, and that's it. That is now your client forever. The customer can contact you directly. They can call the call centre, and the call centre will send it back to you as well. So it's up to you to decide how many of those leads you want to take on. As I said, if you're going to take on yard cleanups, then you're not going to need to take on very many at all.
Yeah.
But if you're taking on more of the mowing jobs or the smaller sort of jobs, then you may take on quite a fair few.
Yeah, and the lead fees, we're all going to point out, it's an incentive for you. People only put themselves down for leads who want to take the work, right? So if we didn't have the lead fee and people could just take jobs, they can pick and choose, and it's not a good customer experience.
Well, the issue is that there's no, if you're not paying for it, it's like, what's the value of it,
Yeah.
Are you now going to be interested in calling that customer within the first 5 minutes, or are you going to sit there and go, I can call it later on tonight or tomorrow? Yeah. So, but if you've got a dollar value on it and you go, I've paid for this, you've got something there. You've got, this is important to me. I've paid for this. Of course I'm going to look after it. Yeah. That's the idea behind it.
Well, that's why I was pointing out, because obviously there's a lot of people who they don't understand the concept of lead fees. They think it's just purely a money grab, when obviously it's not. It's there to actually incentivize franchisees to provide better customer service and only take the work when they actually need it. So it's actually better for people as well. And the other thing as well I want to talk about is the flat fee. So you mentioned roughly around the fee. So that fee you're paying when you started in gyms mowing compared to when you had a massive business, did that change in any way? Or
no, it was exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Which was, it was, probably a little bit less than $200 a week.
Yeah.
Back then, but it was, I was paying $800 a month, not even, for my franchise fee plus whatever leads I took on.
And you had a massive revenue business, and so that obviously we don't touch your revenue, so that changes.
No, exactly.
So the more
I was making really, really good money. As I said, I had 6 blokes working for me, and Jim's was getting $800 a month in franchise fees and whatever leads I
And
took
what was
on.
your revenue in the business?
It was decent.
Decent.
Look at
Multiple six figures, we'll say. It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
So you've done that. We've talked about fees now real quickly, and you've got all these regions. So you're humming along as a regional. Now let's talk about the divisional side. So in gyms, people need to know we've got a franchisee, and we've got a regional franchisor, and then all divisions will have a divisional franchisor. Now Jim was the division for a lot of divisions. He's been the divisional for mowing for many years. Now you're the divisional.
Yeah.
So talk about that, and what does that role actually mean, and what are you doing in that role now?
You've got franchisee, regional franchisor, and divisional franchisor.
Yeah.
So I was a franchisee, then became a regional franchisor, and now I'm the divisional franchisor. So I now run Gyms Mowing Australia at the moment. And my job is to basically look after the division, help improve it, grow it, help out all the franchisors to be able to support their franchisees. Organise advertising, marketing for the business, and basically any issues that come up, I handle them.
Yeah, it's a pretty big role, the divisional. Like, it's the largest mowing and garden care franchise in the world. I think we've got 2,200 nearly franchisees now.
Yeah.
So you're responsible now, obviously, for the training component, which you've just stepped back into do training. Let's just talk about for the people the training itself. So what goes into the Gyms Mowing training, because you're involved in it now. So what's involved with it?
So you've got. Well, I've just started doing the Gyms Mowing training, but essentially what I do is I set up each franchisee and I let them know the absolute fundamentals of running one of these mowing businesses and the basics of how to do it. And then after that, they'll learn about the safety components. They'll learn about the horticulture behind it. They'll learn about trailer safety and how to set up the trailer. They'll learn about mowing and hedge trimming and brush cutting and blowing and all these different services. They'll learn about how to build their business up and bring on employees. They'll learn about how to use the software and do the admin. They'll learn about how to do the quotes properly. So there's a lot of different aspects that get covered while you're at the training. And it's all there to be able to go, right, this is the initial training. This is going to set you up so you have a good idea of how to run this business. But really, the magic happens after they start, and then they have that constant support from their regional franchisor or the managers and coaches in the area. And that's where they go, right, let's reiterate what you've already learned and let's start, getting it done.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing, and people can go online. They can see stuff with you from online. They can see a whole bunch of stuff online. We're really open with our training. We've even had Luke from the Lawn and Garden show out here to do the tour, and we've had a few people so they can check it out. Now with the divisional role as well. So where do you see then the industry going in the future? Let's say 5 years, because there's a lot of changes obviously happening with AI. So there's a lot of corporates who are probably going to get the flick, like myself probably, and we're going to be looking for something to do, right? So where do you see the business over the next 5 years? And I think it's going to be
I've
really
got
good
four
potential.
key factors that I look at, which is we need to support our franchisees. We need to bring in more clients and increase the lead generation. So look after the clients. We need to recruit new franchisees, and we need to retain existing franchisees. And so everything that we do goes into one of those four
pillars.
Yeah, 4 pillars. And so I'm constantly thinking, all right, what can we do to improve franchisee support? So we're looking at like discounts from different providers. It's a big thing. We've got franchisees offering more targeted and tailored coaching and towards each franchisee's business. But where do I see the industry going in 5 years' time? Well, I'm hoping, now that I'm in this role, I'm hoping that Gyms Mowing, look, we're already by far the biggest in Australia. I'm hoping we continue to take up more and more of that market.
Because I think the brand, it's so hard. Like it's so easy now to start a business, right? You can chuck up a Facebook page and get a logo done, and you got a brand and stuff. But I think brand means so much more now than what it does 10 to 20 years ago. And I think a lot of Australians have just they've been burned by tradies, they've been burned by poor service. They just want good service, right?
Well, I think what's happening is a lot of people are going to have to move. I think they'll actually, the same situation that I was in where I needed to make a drastic move to be able to afford my mortgage. I think a lot of people are out there are going to be like that.
Well, there's a lot of cost of living pressure, isn't there, Dan? And if you're an employee, you're capped, right? So
you've got, ridiculously high interest rates at the moment. You've got lack of housing, lack of rentals. You've got all sorts of issues, as to why, why people can't, afford to live the cost of petrol, the cost of groceries. Looking at all that, and you put it all together, and you go, Australian people, it's like, this is a really hard time for us. Like, this is a really seriously difficult time. A lot of people have second jobs to try and get by, and they're doing whatever they can, cutting costs anywhere to try and get by as well. And I look at it and I go, I think more and more people are going to go into getting a small business, because that way they can then provide for their family. They can, the exact same thing as me, and they can earn what they want. They can work the hours they want, and they're not going out there and making large corporations rich.
Well, that's what I think, right? And I think also, but I think people need to get away from this stigma of doing stuff with your hands, right? Because you work in the corporate world, you have this identity, right? So when you go to a barbecue, they go, what do you do? That's generally the first question. I'm the banker at ANZ, blah, 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 blah. So it's very hard for a lot of people to pull themselves away from that to then say, I'm a gardening business owner, or I'm a small business owner, right? Whereas I think the people who I meet, like yourself, and I've met a lot of people over the year who are the corporates who do that, that you can sort of, they all say the same thing, I should have done it years ago, and you can sort of see how, not silly they thought they were, but like just they should have had the confidence to do it, and don't worry about that identity of that previous job, because your job's not your identity, right? It just doesn't matter. You are who you are, but you've all got your reasons. But you've done what I think a lot of people will be doing now, is where that cost of living pressure is coming up, and your work, which you did for this business, didn't get rewarded. You didn't get anything extra for it.
For the one I used to work for, yep.
Yeah, and then now I think a lot of people will probably be in the same boat as you, and they can't get ahead. So I think it
has to happen.
Yeah, it's a great vehicle for people.
If you take a look at what's happening in Australia, I think I think pretty much nearly every single person that's going to watch this right now is going to agree with me.
Well, what do you say about it? Because
it has to happen.
Because I agree with you, but I do think what the frustrating thing with franchising is they look at, you have site-based, which is your quick service restaurant, and then you have the home services franchise, and there are other franchises as well. And people get this thing in their head where you have to pay 200 grand or 300 grand, I'm going to make more money as an ROI than they could possibly do it with gyms. But I think when you look at gyms Mowing in terms of the ROI and what you actually make back in the first 3 years.
That's a whole other conversation.
I want to point this out for people, because I think there's a real stigma towards the home service industry, and I think it's stupid, because if you're looking at it logically in return on investment, most of the time you're far better off with the home services franchise than you are by investing 200, 300 grand with these other ones.
ROI. I cannot find a better return on investment than a gym's mowing business. You can prove me wrong, but the way I see it is most of these gym's mowing businesses are what? 30 grand to 50 grand, somewhere between there.
Yeah.
Now, in my regions, I've got a paid for work guarantee weekly, $2,500 per week. You look at that and you go, well, that's 130 grand, For my franchises, like, they're going to, that tells them they're going to get 4 times return on their investment.
Yep.
Or that's just the pay for work guarantee that we have. That's not what we actually expect to do, and we expect franchisees to earn more than that, which is why we have that guarantee. So if you were to look at what franchisees are really earning, you look at that and you go, well, these guys are earning so much more, 5-6 times return on investment, and that's paid off in their first year, and then every year after that, they don't have to keep on paying that initial purchase price.
You're not forced to do
fit outs. You're just
paying
the franchise fees, which is 10 grand a year, somewhere around there, ballpark.
You're not paying percentage of revenue. You're not forced to do fit outs. You're not forced to buy from the supplier. These are all these things when people need to look at a franchise, they've got to consider with gyms. It's annoying for me because sometimes I see these business brokers online talk about gyms mowing. They've got no idea about it. I'm thinking, you're a business broker. You don't even know how good of an ROI it is comparing it to these other more traditional franchises. It really does my head in. That's why I'm asking this question, because I just want to get it out there.
I really think, especially lawn mowing, because of how simple it is to run a gym's mowing business.
You can do everything like gardening as well. Like a lot of guys do.
You can do gardening as well, obviously. You do. So usually, I should mention this, but during spring and summer, you usually do your customers every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All lawn mowing. You don't really do gardening services during spring and summer. You usually push them back to winter. And so during winter, you'll still do your customers every 2 weeks. It's just that one visit is lawn mowing and the other visit is gardening. So it becomes lawn mowing every 4 weeks and gardening in the middle. So yes, gardening is a huge part of it, but I usually make sure that every customer is looked after each year for their gardening, and then the lawn mowing is the main part.
And why do you think people are still, like, for me, as I said, like, if you're looking at purely ROI, like, it's less risk for me, but people still pick these site-based QSR, we'll call them quick service restaurant options, over a gym's mowing, for example, or another gym's franchise. Why do you think it is? Do you think it's just looking at it, they maybe don't understand the model, or don't think how much is actually they can earn with it, or what do you think it is? Do you think there's a stigma maybe doing the home services as opposed to I own a restaurant or I own this? What do you think?
I think that maybe it is to do with the physical side of it, because it is a physical job.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and lie to people. It's a physical job. Like you're out in the hot sun, so that could be a part of it. Maybe it's because there's a stigma to I'm just a lawn mowing contractor, where if you said I have a restaurant, they feel a little bit more upper class or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That could be a big part of it. And I think a lot of the reasons why people just don't buy them is because maybe they're just a bit worried. Maybe they're just worried about job security. They're quite comfortable in the job they currently have, or it's just getting them enough. So they're like, I don't really want to leave. It's the unknown. What if this doesn't work out? So
and you have that question a lot, I presume, from people who look into it. So obviously you got the paperwork guarantee that's there. What are some other things that are normally, because you obviously it might be husband and wife buying the business too, and the partner would have a lot of questions too. So what are some other things that you get asked that we haven't covered today?
So usually they just ask what the cost of the business is, what's included with it. So I usually try and do like package deals. So include the equipment.
I think everyone in Australia has seen those ads now wherever you're
registered. I think it's hard to miss them. You've got to ask, what support is there. So you've got the franchisees, the managers, the mentors. You get the power of the brand. How much work is out there. But I think most of it's covered. I think.
What would you say then? Because a lot of the time when someone's going to buy a franchise, they do have a main influence in the background, right? So they might be going, I'm thinking about doing this Jim's Mowing thing, and then someone goes, no, I heard they take all your money or this and that. What would you sort of say to the prospect, like in terms of what can they provide to these people who maybe don't understand the business, or what would you sort of say to them?
If you're not sure, just ask other franchisees. 100%. Like that's it. Call Jim's Mowing, speak to your franchisor, the person that runs the area, and then ask for other franchisees' numbers. And then find out from them.
And now I was going to say as well, as the Divisional now, where do you see the brand the next 5 to 10 years? Where are we going to go? What's your plans? Like, do you want to get to 3,000? I know Jim's Cleaning wants to chase down Jim's Mowing with the number.
I'm going to double it.
You're going to double it?
I'm going to double it in 10 years.
Hang on, let's just repeat that. You're going to double Jim's Mowing franchisee numbers?
I'm going to double Jim's Mowing in 10 years.
So 4,400 franchisees?
That's what I'm going to get.
Can we put that many on, you reckon?
We can do it.
We can
do it. There's so many independent contractors out there, it's not funny.
Yeah.
We can do it. And I think that it's the right time for Australia as well, and New Zealand. I mean, cost of living going up, a very simple business model to get into, very reasonable priced. I mean, why can't we?
Now, why should an independent come across to us? I know it happens a bit because I interview a few of these guys. Let's talk about that, because obviously you're very active in the LMCA group, and obviously Jim's Mowing is the big bad corporate and stuff, but you're in there obviously building relationships and things. So what would you sort of say to those guys about maybe considering a switch? Or why should they do
I've got a really good relationship with a lot of independent contractors. I'm in a group that's got 9,000 independent lawn mowing
contractors.
Which
is the LMCA group, right?
Yeah. I'd say, well, a lot of them will know me. A lot of them will know my story and what I've done. I'd say, well, if you know me so well, if you've seen what I've done and how I've built up, and I've started from the very bottom to be able to now build up to the point where I'm now running Jim's Mowing, maybe it's the time you take a look at it. Who knows? Grass could be greener on the other side.
Because I think what they might be saying is like, well, I want to build my own brand, right? That's sometimes the thing I see online from independents, right? But the reality is, to build your own brand so actually people know you, it's not easy.
You know what? It's not even that. Like, there's a lot of independent contractors that are giving good service out there,
right?
But there's a hell of a lot that aren't.
Okay.
A hell of a lot that aren't. And we refer to them as cowboys.
Yeah.
So I would like to see them, continue to give the good service that they're giving, but I want to see Jim's Mowing take over those ones that aren't. I want to see them take over those ones that aren't, and then that's my idea. And hopefully the independents, because they're very supportive of Jim's Mowing at the moment, especially knowing me. So I'd like to see us really take over this whole industry and see Jim's Mowing really grow, because I think everyone knows it's got potential. It's got huge, huge potential. It's like this untapped beast. And the amazing thing for me is that we have a lot of independents who have been around for 20 years jump on Ask Jim and say to Jim, thank you for actually raising the rates in the industry, right? Because I think Luke done from the Australian Lawn and Garden Care podcast did a independent survey for what the actual contractors are charging. He's a very smart guy. Yeah, it's like 120, 130 an hour or something was the feedback from independent contractors, which that would have been unheard of probably
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like that's pretty much the same level of what most of our guys would probably maybe charge. Well, from what I know.
Yeah. Oh, look,
Yeah.
that's I don't know if that's an average, but it's.
I think it was an average from what I read. Yeah, he did a big price survey and he had these figures and it was pretty
There you
substantial.
go.
It wasn't your $50 or $60 an hour. It was right up there, which I thought was a reflection of how the industry now is. There's a lot of demand now, which is great for good service.
There's good money to be made in mowing. People don't realise that this industry, like, if you're willing to work, you can make really, really decent coin out of it. I mean, if you mow a lawn, faster, you're going to make more per minute.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast, and sorry for the interruption. This is the host, Joel Kleber. I've got a real quick favour to ask you. We've had more than 50,000 downloads across our podcast over the years, but not many reviews. So we just need people to take the time to do us a favour. And if you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Really helps the show. Now back to the podcast. Yeah, so that's the thing. We want to point out that's not just going to be easy when you walk in, because I think it's important to point out it is hard work, right? So exactly how hard did you work to get to where you were in those early days? You said 7 days a week.
I haven't stopped working hard.
You haven't stopped working?
No,
but
not at all.
It's a different type of hard now. So now you're in the office. But
So,
let's say
I was blue collar. I'm now white collar.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's
to the
just
world.
it's long hours.
Yeah.
It's a lot of brain stress.
A lot of brain strain.
Yeah, a lot of oh god.
Yeah.
But no, it's I've put in long hours to be able to get to where I am now. I've put in a lot of effort. I've focused on being as efficient as I possibly can. I've focused on taking care of clients to grow the business and just making sure that I don't cut corners anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think from learning those lessons and making sure that I fully understand, each role before I move into the next and before I continue to grow is what really has set me up to be able to get to this point now where Jim and myself feel like I'm ready to be able to see what Jim's Mowing is capable of. I think it needs someone that's going to really drive it and go, right, well, what's he capable of? And knowing that I know everything from running a single mowing round myself to then bringing on employees, buying a region of Jim's Mowing, training franchisees, buying more regions of Jim's Mowing, training managers to be able to train franchisees to build mowing rounds, and now training and coaching franchisors to be able to do all that as well. I really want to see what I'm capable of.
I think it's the best. Well, we're biased, but I think it's the best value franchise in Australia, the Jim's Mowing brand. How long it's been around for, how many years it's done, and then obviously what success franchisees have. And I find it baffling to me that we've actually I've interviewed franchisees who've gone with another mowing franchise brand, and then you hear them coming to us after they do that and going, I should have just went with Jim's in the first place. And they go sometimes for a cheaper option. And
I do think it's the best value for money. Where are you going to find a brand that is this dominant in an industry for this, this amount of, for this cost?
Plus the ROI we get in the first year. Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You go look anywhere. There is no brand in any other industry that dominates that industry this much, and it is also, on top of that, as reasonably priced as what we are.
Yeah.
It just does not happen.
And then real quickly as well, I've interviewed a few of your franchisees before. Corporate guy wants to make a shift to Jim's Mowing. They've obviously worked in the office their whole life. There's a transition period. Just from your experience, how long does the transition roughly take till they get rid of all the aches and pains and they start getting match fit?
Yeah, about 2 months.
2 months, yeah. So push through the 2 months and then you'll be adjusted.
Yeah, about 2 months, yeah. 8 weeks or so, I reckon that's where the aches start to go away. But during that time...
And they all lose weight. Everyone I've eaten...
Oh, yeah, you lose weight. You get a lot stronger. Your muscles start to develop a bit more. You get a real knack for lawn mowing and you start to feel a lot more comfortable in your brush cutting and your mowing. And, I reckon about 2 months in.
Yeah, plus you get paid to do it at the same time. So it's amazing because I've interviewed a lot of corporates and stuff who come on, 2 months afterwards and you see... I remember from training actually a lot of the people and you see them, just how much weight they lose in their face. You can actually tell. Yeah,
but you've got to think about how many lawns these guys are mowing and jobs these guys are doing within that. Like 8 weeks is a long time. So no, they're I reckon 2 months is pretty smack bang, and they're very efficient after 2 months as well. Very efficient.
Now, in your mind as well, who makes the best franchisees? Like, is there any good stories that stand out to you?
Who makes the best franchisees? When you say that, what do you mean?
Like, what type of person? Is it someone who's just asked a lot of questions? They're proactive. They're on the research prior. Who are
the best franchisees?
Yeah.
So it's definitely people that are positive minded. First of all, people that are driven, so you can sort of tell if there's a reason behind why they want to do it. You know, they might be doing it because they want to provide for their family, or they want to spend more time with their family. Whatever it is, they just really care about. Very passionate about every job that they do. They're the ones that do well, and the ones that ask a lot of questions as well when they first inquire. So, yeah, passionate, positive people that are willing to learn.
And any good success stories from your time? You would have trained up heaps of new franchisees. Is there anyone that you remember who's come? They might have been similar to you. They've come with this as their last option. They've borrowed money, or they've had a really tough situation, and within a year or two, they've completely changed their circumstances. Anyone come to mind?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've actually got quite a few.
You have a heap of them, yeah. So is there anyone that comes to mind in particular?
There's one guy in Sunshine Coast South, and his name is Mick, and he started up the business, and he's a very Aussie sort of, bit of a rougher sort
Mick
of
Crouch?
bloke. Yeah, Mick Crouch.
Yeah. Morayfield, yeah.
Yeah. Geez, you're good.
Yeah, I know.
And he said to me, he comes in really driven. He goes, Dan, I'm going to absolutely obliterate your record. He goes, I'm going to smash you. He goes, you'll see. He goes, I'll do so much better than you. And I was like, all right, let's see what you do. But he didn't. He hadn't done this or anything like that before that I know of. But yeah, he's just that sort of inclined sort of bloke, and he went really, really hard. He ended up bringing on like 3 employees. He ended up helping out a whole bunch of franchisees around him in his first year.
Right.
He was making really like hundreds of thousands of dollars in his first year.
Oh, good on him.
But a lot more than what I made in my first year.
I will say as well, if anyone's interested in Gyms, we have podcasts with Dan, we have videos with all the franchisees. Please check that out, because it's also a really good part of your research where you can check out at No Pressure Environment, the podcast, the YouTube channel, and see all this sort of stuff as well. But Dan, is there anything else I should have asked you which I didn't ask you today?
No, I think
we've gone for a bit. We've gone for your whole journey to the end pretty much. I know there's a lot in between as well, but it's been a great gym story. Like, when did I meet you? Probably 8 years ago, and I think your pay's increased a little bit more than mine over that time. So well done on that. What you've done. I'm the sucker still sitting here, and I've been watching you do the formula, but it's been great. So it's all well deserved, and it's a lot of hard work that's gone into it. And you've gone from franchisee to franchisor to divisional. It just shows you what gyms can do in hard work, right?
I cannot believe, honestly, in my mind, I'm now like, anything's possible if you mow enough lawns. My mindset before was, if you mow a lot of lawns, you'll make a lot of money. Yeah. Now I'm like, no. Anything's possible if you mow a lot of lawns.
If you mow enough lawns, you'll own Gyms Mowing. That's what happens.
That's it.
There you go. But Dan, thank you very much for your time today. If people want to learn more, just Google Gyms Mowing, or call 131-546 to an observation day. If you're in one of the areas that Dan controls, you obviously get to speak to Dan or one of our other great franchisors as well. And don't wait. 8 years from on your backside to now doing pretty well. Doing a little bit better than us in gyms.
It's 7.5 to 8 years.
7.5 years.
Yeah.
So it's a great journey, well deserved, and thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you leave a rating, a review, comment, share it with friends and family. And if you are interested in becoming a Gyms franchisee, just call 131-546 or head to Gyms.net and put an inquiry, and we'll be in touch soon.